Hey Dennis, how's it going?
Oh, good.
So I want to talk about this headline. FBI warns iPhone and Android users to stop sending texts. What the heck is going on, man? Can you tell me about it?
Yes. So this is actually, I would say, a fundamental issue that has been helping cyber criminals to be more effective.
Okay.
So this is because when you send a text message, it's actually sent in clear text. It's not
Okay.
protected. And because of that, cyber criminals can be able to intercept the message, listen to your calls, listen to your SMS, and as well be able to retrieve the codes that
Okay.
we use for authentication, and they will be able to leverage that. So in this context, I think this is highly because of nation state sponsored attacks. They are now leveraging it to
Okay.
hack US critical infrastructures. Uh,
Okay. So
yeah, so
is this when supposedly these Chinese hackers got into the AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile networks in the US? Is that what this is about?
yes, that's correct. So they were able to eavesdrop on the communication channels and know what is happening and what people are sending to each other.
Okay. So let's try to understand this. Companies use SMS to send OTPs. They use SMS to do identity proofing. In
Mhm.
fact, if I'm not mistaken, then wasn't there something like Mobile Connect or something? It was GSMA and the Mobile World Congress. Like they had this big launch several years ago about Mobile Connect and how you can use the cellular networks as a way to do identity proofing. And obviously, when you set up your account for the first time, if you're using banking systems or whatever else, you receive OTPs, one-time passwords from via SMS. So what you're saying is all of these are sent in plain text. And if the hackers can get into these networks, they can fundamentally see these texts
Yes,
and intercept them.
that's correct. So I would say maybe there are maybe 3 to 4 critical vulnerabilities that relates to authentication here.
Mm-hmm.
So number one is the text messages are not end-to-end encrypted. So
Okay.
they're encrypted between your phone to
Uh-huh.
the cell towers, but when it gets there, it's no longer encrypted. So
Okay.
meaning anyone that is there can be able to retrieve it. Then the second one is the issue of vulnerabilities in the network protocols themselves.
Okay.
So if an attacker is able to set up a rogue base station, they can be able to force the user phones to connect to them
Uh-huh.
instead of connecting to the real
Cell
base
towers.
station cell tower. So I mean a
Okay.
kind of adversary in the middle attack. So you are now connecting with them, and they are the one now relaying your message to the genuine cell tower. So they can also be able to intercept all the communications in that regard. And also, when you talk of a standard one is SIM swapping.
Okay.
So this one is not really about vulnerabilities in the protocol, but it's because of the network providers, because of how they're used to identify a user when they want to swap their SIM card for another number. So that
Okay.
can also be leveraged to get the code.
This is fascinating. So let me just get this right. If it comes to the cellular infrastructure, right? What you're saying is there could be a SIM swapping attack. So you could receive the OTPs and so could another phone that is not your phone.
That's correct.
Then comes the next layer. Your phone could automatically connect to a cell tower that is a rogue cell tower and intercept all communications, kind of like a man in the middle attack.
Yes.
And then let's say none of that happens, but if you're sitting on the backbone of AT&T or T-Mobile or Verizon or any carrier, this happened in the US, but this can happen anywhere in the world. They can intercept these text messages because, again, they are not end-to-end encrypted. And so they can see your OTP, like who you're sending money to, how much did you send it, what is the receiving IBAN, all of those things. All those notifications we get on our text messages, they're all essentially visible to any attacker that can get in any of these three ways.
Yes, that's correct. Just see it as using HTTP instead of HTTPS.
So let's talk about end-to-end encryption. So true end-to-end encryption, maybe you can define what it is, and maybe you can also help us understand where does it fail in the cell tower example or the network example.
Okay, so yeah, so I think that's really a good question. So end-to-end encryption is encryption between one device to the other.
Okay.
So I think sometimes people confuse it with encryption in transit.
Okay.
Like what we get with TLS. So TLS makes sure that when you send a message, that from your browser to the back end, the server that is encrypted.
Okay.
And that's it. Once it
No
gets to the server,
no matter how many hops it goes through in between, like it goes to my wireless router, then it goes to the access point, then it goes to whatever hops to the backbone, goes all
yes.
all the stops it takes, it is encrypted until it reaches the server on the other end, and nobody in between can decrypt this message.
Yeah, if you can do that, then it's end-to-end encryption.
Okay.
But if you are just encrypting it between your device and the first hub, then it's not end-to-end encryption.
Which means, so in this example, I receive a message or I send a message from my phone to the cell tower. It's encrypted, but as soon as it's decrypted, somebody can see it in plain text at the cell tower.
Yeah.
Or on the back end, on the backbone of the network. And so by the time it reaches the server, every hop it gets, there's a chance for somebody to have a look at it.
That's correct.
So let's use maybe an example that illustrates this. When we use our ID solutions, it is end-to-end encrypted.
Yes.
So is that similar to how Signal or WhatsApp works? Meaning, if I send you a Signal message or a WhatsApp message or a Telegram message, the only thing that these networks know is that my phone number talked to your phone number, but what was said can never be read by, WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram.
Yes. So they rely on public key cryptography. And
Okay.
what that happens is on your device, let's say on your Signal app, you have your key pair, your public and private key, and your private key sits on your phone, so it never leaves your app, your phone. So when you are sending a message to me on your phone, you will encrypt it with my public key before it leaves your phone.
Okay.
And because the Signal or WhatsApp, they don't have access to the private key, then even if it travels through their server, they cannot be able to decrypt it. So I'm the only person that can be able to decrypt it with my private key.
So I think I understand what you're saying. So what you're saying is, when I send you a message, if it is indeed on an end-to-end encryption architecture,
Yep.
I would send you a message using your public key.
Mm-hmm.
And only you can decrypt it because you have your private key sitting in your phone.
That's correct.
And the problem we have with this scary headline, FBI warns iPhone and Android users stop sending text, is there is no end-to-end encryption. So if I can send, if in that scenario, I send you a text message and say, Dennis, here is my OTP. Can you please use it to log in to whatever? All the hops along the way can see that OTP in plain text.
That's correct. So anyone that is in between can see it before it gets to me.
So I guess the first lesson here is if you want to send something critical, then you should use an end-to-end solution like WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram or something like that, so that it has end-to-end encryption.
Yep, I completely agree. So yeah, on the
Is
face value,
iMessage the same way?
yes. So yeah, Apple does the same also.
Okay. Fascinating. So we have been talking a lot about what has not worked, and this is why we have this shocking headline. But we were talking a little bit about how often this has happened in the past. And you did some research, I did some research, and this is not exactly news, right? This fact that there is no end-to-end encryption, or you have these rogue cell towers or SIM swapping, these have been around for a while. This is not news.
Yes, so actually in the CISA and FBI alert, the advisory report they released, it was clearly stated that it's not a new attack vector, that they're just using the weaknesses, the existing weaknesses in the system. So it's not a new.
So let me make this is just blowing my mind. So, we were trying to set up Windows Hello for Business, and one of the requirements for setting up Windows Hello for Business is if you don't have a Microsoft Authenticator app or a Yubico, you have to receive a phone call or a SMS OTP.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't Microsoft forcing companies to rely on this network that is clearly can be compromised?
I would say I will kind of not be that direct. So I would
Okay.
say because Microsoft, what they do is they try to give you the flexibility of choosing whatever method you want. Although all of them are still sustainable, all of them can still be phished. So they give you the option of using SMS or using phone calls or using their authenticator app. So they wouldn't say that you must use SMS.
No,
But
I think what I'm saying is different. I'm saying, does it not make sense for companies like Microsoft to say, no, you shall not use SMS and phone call because it relies on an architecture on a network that can easily be compromised by SIM swapping, by rogue cell towers, by backends that are compromised because of vulnerabilities by Chinese hackers. Like, why not just say, don't ever use that to do verification of identity?
yes, I will agree with you. Actually, if you check these protocols, these SS7 protocols that is used to route SMS and phone calls, it was actually established in 1970, even before we know what is the modern cryptography that we use today. So yeah, for authentication, I will never recommend that, and I think that the tech giants should stop. Should actually remove completely the option of SMS or phone calls in the authentication method.
Well, funny you should talk about SS7. As I was getting ready for this call, I was looking up, and here it is, an article that is more than 8 years old that is talking about the SS7 hack explained from The Guardian, which is, I guess, a British newspaper. And it says, I love this. Hackers can read text messages, listen to phone calls, and track mobile phone users' locations just with the knowledge of their phone number using a vulnerability in the worldwide mobile phone network infrastructure. This is 8 years old, and still, this is newsworthy. Like, it's been 8 years.
I would say that the issue with most infrastructures and even the regulatory agencies is they'll just leave it if it works until it's
Something
crystal
big
clear,
happens.
big happens before they'll start pushing it. Yeah.
As always, this has been very, very entertaining and enlightening. So thank you, Dennis. But if I were to summarize, I think what you're saying is the security of our mobile network is as strong as the weakest member. And as a mobile network, you have thousands, if not millions, of cell towers used by thousands of network providers. And if they are all using unpatched software and firmware, if they are using phishable factors to access these networks on the backbone, the people that maintain these IoT devices, these cell towers, you have obviously an even bigger vulnerability or weakness when you have swim swapping. So what you're essentially saying is you have millions of cell towers, billions of devices, where the weakest link is clearly a user, a vulnerability, a bad configuration. It's like the chances of that happening are so high that you should never use this network for authentication or identity proofing.
Yes, they usually say that user is the weakest link, but in this case, I think it's technology. So I completely agree with you on that.
This is fascinating. Dennis, thank you. As always, you find time to talk about this and help me understand a little bit better about cybersecurity.
Thank you, Al. It's my pleasure.